I don't, since my computer's over there, y'all can have it pulled up. So we are going to go over the quick check data, the first quick check. We'll take a look, we'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes just talking about the actual data numbers themselves, and then we're gonna break it up into math and reading, what's working, what's not working, and what we need to do between now and February 26th, which is when the window opens for the next quick check. So this slide deck is in the Malvern Share Drive. We made it just to kind of keep our thoughts organized. It's in that 3.5 Title I PLC folder, and I just linked in all of the different documents that we are kind of consistently referencing during this work. When we went to our follow-up meeting the other week, the data protocol form that they came up with was actually based off of, like, this is what they gave us, and so we decided not to change how we were gonna look at data, because it's the same as what we've already been doing for CFAs, and you guys are comfortable with that, so. So let's start with reading. So do you have your analysis sheet? So I have on mine that 4 students did not meet. Is that correct?
Yes, because I have 6, but I included my special ed kids.
Okay.
But so yes, 4 of my regular ed kids did not meet.
And then 9 approach.
I have, those are ish. I have 4 that approach and 2 that meet.
And masters?
14.
Okay. And then I don't have well, I've got his numbers here. So
It's about.
okay. Oh well, because we don't have ECR.
Mm-hmm.
So based on those numbers, that's 19% for did not meet, 21 for approaches, 27 for meets, and 31 for masters. So that's 79% of the grade level was at approaches or higher. So whoop whoop, celebrations there. Before we get into like the different questions and kind of how they performed on each of those, and which TEKs were to be celebrated and what maybe didn't go very well, between now and February 26th, you want to set a SMART goal. Where do we think we can get kids to improve from 79% to what by February 26th? What do you think?
Well, based on my data, my kids did pretty well with inferring and with theme. I am also revisiting theme and inferring in throughout poetry, so I've already, based on my drama CFA, thank you. So where my kids didn't do as well was the revising, so that's I think easier to deal with than inferring and theme.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna work with the revising TEK and focus, add that into my small group and my whole group instruction, because I'm already redoing or adding an inferring and theme through whole group and small group through poetry, and we're about to start comparing genres, like multi-genre, so I can still do theme and inferring, because inferring is one of the hardest for anybody, and my kids did really well on that. So
Yeah, and author's purpose is the other TEK.
yes,
You can hit.
and yeah.
So what percentage after the reteach, continued intervention and extension, the percentage of students at approaches and above will improve from 79% to?
Well, if I'm just going off of my TEK that is revising, that was at 60% for me.
Okay,
So,
We looked overall.
yeah,
yeah,
but if I look at, if I look at overall,
90.
I'm already at, if you want it to be all of the teaks,
mhm,
then that's different because I'm already at 79 for individual teaks for
Right.
some of my kids.
So 100 then.
How about
90.
95?
95. We cut it in the middle.
okay.
But, so,
Well, and I know Antonio's not here, but looking at, and I don't have
His were a little lower.
His were,
individual
yeah.
data.
So for him to say 95, that's gonna be unmanageable.
He has,
Are 63, 63, 63, 50.
he has
60.
10 kids at meets,
Mhm.
but where they are on that, I'm not sure how far they would need to go.
He could have a few more. At least half of those I think would go up.
What a,
90 for him.
90.
Do 90 for him and 95 for me.
Mhm.
I think that's reasonable, but I don't think 95 for him is reasonable.
I think 100 for both, but you know.
so, Sid, you said 95.
Well, just so
If
you know,
he surpasses that, that would be.
but yeah. I mean, but I still have my ones that, you know, at
You're frequent.
Frequent.
Kmart and Dillon.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
They're not
something else.
changing.
No.
And
Okay,
Zamar, he's not
So
changing.
celebrations there, the high number of masters, that one of the more difficult teaks they actually performed really
Mhm.
well on, okay? And then,
Yeah, they got 79. The hardest teak, in my opinion, my kids got 79% on. That was their average.
what teak was that?
Inferring
Inferring.
5.6 F.
Yeah, Antonio's had about 60%.
The
Got
teak
his
for revising is 5,
11C.
and that was the one you said needs the most work.
Well,
For me,
and if we look
For-
at the question, that number 6 was actually, because, you know, oops. It was more of an editing than revising, it was a
yes,
quotation
it
mark.
was.
So it was more of
Well,
a,
and one of them was spelling, and that's not revising
Right.
either.
this
That's,
next one will be fixed, we appreciate your patience with our development of assessments,
Here's what it
and I'll
looks
send it to you,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah,
So,
I mean,
but
I'm
yes. So the actual revision one, they did well on.
yes. The editing they did not.
Yeah.
The revision, but we'll just count it as we'll
Together.
just say revise and
For the sake of,
yeah.
okay. Was there any other question number, if you look, do you have Antonio's, his reading data?
Mm-hmm.
So number 6 was on the lower side on how they performed. Was there any other question?
His next lowest was number 4.
Said that was, which was an inferencing question.
5, inferencing. What did I say, number 4?
You said 4.
Yeah. That was an inferencing and author's purpose, kind of. It was what is the main reason the author introduces this selection with the information in paragraph 1.
Yeah,
So
so that'd
it's-
be inferring. But I don't have,
It's author's purpose. It's a little bit of both, I think, on that one, yeah.
So then we can just focus on for next steps or how we support for when the editing and revising piece,
Mm-hmm.
more activities.
yeah, and I think more revising than editing, because that's what it should be, but, also maybe in some of that is, the whole word roots, suffixes and prefixes,
Mm-hmm.
vocabulary, I guess.
A lot of that is vocabulary
Yeah.
with that.
But like I said, since I'm already, based on my CFA, I'm already doing inferring and theme and author's purpose. I think that's one of the reasons they did well, because I've already been reteaching that. And because I know inferring is the hardest.
And it could be cross-curricular, like in Science King, you know, when you're reading a science passage, what is the author's purpose of the science passage? What inference can you draw with a correct science prediction?
Right. Susan did make, since we started with reading all
Did you
through
start
this, yeah. She did make some copies of a couple of things that we can use to help with strategies, and King, this will help for your wing group as well for
Can you find it?
reading.
She's looking for the PowerPoint.
Oh, this,
I showed her.
There you go.
so one of the things that Judy talked to us about, or kind of just put into I guess a easy to read graphic, kind of like math has its concrete representational abstract, reading has its progression as well, those literal questions that most kids do pretty well on because they can find the information in the passage. Then you move up to structural and inferential. And so Susan's passing out, I know she had already given you guys some of those question stems that we could use during our win time. But one of the things that we got as a resource from Judy at our IC meeting was the text dependent questions planning sheet. And it looks like this. Susan, do you wanna talk a little bit just about that?
Yeah, I think when reading, like we're reading a passage in win time or in reading, sometimes it's hard to come up with those questions off the top of your head that go with the teak and things like that. So one of those is a STEM one with the inferencing, authors, and revising stems on there that you can use during win or reading time from there. So I think that was I took all the star steps and just kind of put them in questions there. And the other sheet I like Judy gave us, it says text dependent questions, planning sheet like that. And just as you're reading, like it has your general understanding, what are some questions here, your key details, on the back has your inferencing and some more author's purpose stems from there. And you can use it when planning your stories and reading from there to help focus on those areas and tasks. I think it might be, it's always good. I used to have a question stem ring right next to me so I remember to ask those questions and what they need from there. So
Oh, go ahead.
so using that, I gave you a passage, which is one coming up with our win time, okay? If you'll look through that and see, what would be a good author's purpose question? Just kind of skim the text first.
Does anybody have a good author's purpose question?
Well, I thought you wanted me to come up with a good answer. I know the answer.
So what's the answer?
Don't work backwards.
Well, I mean, you could easily just ask the question, like, what's the author's purpose for writing this text? Well, I think the author's purpose for writing this text is to explain where the song America the Beautiful came from.
And then you can always back that up. The author's purpose is to explain what text evidence tells you that.
Took the words
Right.
right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Y'all are smart people.
We are super smart.
You're smart.
Thanks.
I did like this, cause she had us read a story and then we had to fill out the whole thing, and I guess it just really, we were talking with another team today, and you kinda get in a rut of asking the same questions, cause those are the ones you're most comfortable with, even in math, I'm sure, whenever you're asking them to work a certain problem, so this kind of, I guess, highlighted, it, of course, is easy to do, just the simple, key details, but then it was a little bit more difficult to come up with some of the other ones and change the wording of them to match the way STAR does it. So this is a nice planning sheet, and we also put this in the folder, so if you ever wanna use it to read through, a passage before working with a group, it's a good planning sheet for that.
Is it a PDF? This?
No, it's actually a doc.
Okay.
Ooh.
I was thinking
So
of.
you can make
Yeah, she could type them
changes
in.
to it. Yay.
You could even give it to students and have them come up with their own questions.
That's,
Duh.
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is it something like, I guess, this or something you could create like this to where they would kind of, get something like this for different texts and if they had a question, they kind of fill out.
Yeah, they can come up with their own, that's a teak,
Well, and I
asking
think I
questions
might
about your reading.
Do that with my WIN group, that's that literary group,
Mhm.
Your
the high
higher,
flyers that are,
yeah.
I want them to do this because it's funny, because they are so busy not trying to be finished with the answer that they don't really write the good answer, so now I'm gonna make them come up with good questions, and then they have to answer it.
Mhm.
I like that.
That's a good use of it.
So, did y'all have any, noticings, I guess, well, the kids just took it in your class, right, for reading, any issues with the different item types, or you feel like that played a role in their scores at all on the quick check, or?
So question 1 was choose 2.
What, I mean, my kids did pretty well, so
Yeah.
it's like, I also think part of the reason they did really well, and you guys all know this, is because they did so badly on their CFA, that I like lambasted them for their lack of effort, and so.
That was my next question, is did they use the strategies?
They
on
did, they
this?
100%. They did not with the CFA, and they did use the 4-square strategy, and they did really well, so I'm not saying that they're good and they don't have to learn anything. I'm saying is I need to keep doing what I'm doing and raising the bar a little bit so they can keep doing well. Except for that whole revising thing, which they could do better on. They can do better on all of it,
Right.
but they could.
Well, and you've shown them the difference. Here's what happens when you don't use your strategies. Here's what happens when you do.
Oh yeah, I did.
And I'm kind of trying to come up with some revising lessons. I did a 3rd grade one just to see how, because your base is on their writing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was trying to come up with one that kind of matches what's going on for
I
there.
kind of did that with combining sentences.
Mhm.
So, and how to make it better, like, so we did like, expand your sentences, and then also expand it now, add more details into it. So now we've expanded it, now I need some adjectives in it. And before it wasn't the adjectives, it was just who, what, where, when. Now I want the adjectives in it, and then combining 2 sentences. I think
That'll hit a lot of it.
yeah.
And some of the verbiage we noticed, like some of the STEM questions, like what is a clear and effective way to use this word or to use these word choices. So the vocabulary was a big one on that.
Mm-hmm.
Just understanding what clear and effective means. That stumped some of our students.
Well, and a lot of them get that when I do my when I conference with them during writers workshop, so they get that discussion and that instruction, the one-on-one instruction, but they need more of it because they don't write well
They don't see
in
that
general. They don't write well in general.
Well, good. No, overall, y'all did really well. Your kiddos did well on their understanding author's purpose and inferencing. Yeah, they did really well on that.
I mean,
I'm wondering if, and I know writing has been a focus, tried to be more of a focus over the last 2 years. I've seen so many different like mini lessons or activities where teachers have posted some type of like mentor text or cut up or written parts on an anchor chart, and the kids have to go around, and I'm wondering if we could do something similar to that for just a revising activity.
Well, I know one thing that my kids really, really love, and because it's literal, it's concrete. I take the and when we do writing, I make them skip every other line, and I will literally cut their paper apart
Oh, you did that.
and then tape it back to, so the cut and paste, it's literal, and they love doing that because they're like, oh, you can, oh, and so, but maybe doing that, I do it with their individual writing, but maybe doing that with chart paper or with sentence strips, so they can manipulate it bigger, and do it that way too, or even, maybe not whole class, but small group with sentence strips. But yeah, I think that, because they love when I cut their papers apart and tape them back together in a different order.
They like being able, it's just that manipulation piece
Yes,
of
because
stuff
they all want to
too.
be like, I'm gonna erase it. No, don't erase anything.
Right.
Do not erase it. That takes up too much time, and these are really good thoughts. Let's keep your thoughts. Let's just rearrange it.
Yeah, and I know Susan, like she said, has been trying to look for some different things, because that's kind of a hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's very personal with their
Yeah,
writing, individualized
it's
with their
tough.
writing.
Right, and so that's really when you confer with them during Rogers Workshop, that's the best time to do it.
Yeah.
And I only let like 3 people confer with me, and if they're at my table, then the one person I'm teaching, the other 2 are listening. They're not over here having a conversation, so they get to hear 3 lessons, their own and 2 others.
But you just brought up a good point, and I don't know if everyone does this all the time, those quick conferences with their students where they're focusing on
One thing.
a one thing, make the revising piece of that or something specific in that revising that you want to focus on really, and make that more of a habit so they're getting practice. And so maybe that
It's not as consistent, but yeah,
right,
more consistent.
because that's a good time for it. Okay, all right, math, Mr. King, I'm backed up.
Are you guys able to pull this up, or am I to share it?
No, you can, I have, so that's for you guys to kind of look at, but then, I'm making notes on that next data template that we use for CFAs, where we kind of go through the see it, name it, do it. So I have, King, that you had 9 students that did not meet,
Right,
and then 7 approaches, 4 meets, and 6 masters.
correct.
So the number of students that were at approaches and above was 76%.
76% at approaches or above?
Cause you'd add approaches, meets, and masters percentages together.
Yeah, I may have.
Did I mess that? I'm not the math teacher.
I might add or I have 65,
Yes, you are.
65%,
I have 76.
76.
Cause
By
there's,
approaches?
cause, well, what I did was let me clarify. I have Antonio's numbers, so I took his numbers all
Oh,
together,
okay. With
and
the-
as a 5th grade math group,
Oh, gotcha.
70%, 76% of the
Okay,
5th grade students.
Okay,
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Mine was.
You're like, I don't know how you got that.
Yeah, no, I'm like, that's good, but yeah, I'm like, who you add? Because I have 65%, at approaches or better. Now, I did have, one that wasn't here for like a week, well, almost a week, but, was Kamario, he wasn't here. I think that's the only one that did not take. I think everybody else did, and I had one that he was on the roll, I think, but he's no longer at the school, and that was done.
Okay,
But yeah, so I only had 26 tests. And of that 26, 65%
Yes.
got approaches or better.
yeah, I counted 26 You had quite a few in the masters category and several in the did not
Woo,
meets,
celebrate.
but that's great. But looking, and I know where your students and which students were where. If 76% of the fifth grade students were at approaches or above, what do you want your goal to be? And I mean, we can talk it over with Antonio to move from that 76 by the next quick check, which is February 26th.
I was thinking, if that's 76, I was thinking 80.
Okay.
Five.
Susan's
85.
always like,
80? I'm trying to be realistic. But that's like, if I was,
Yeah, I'd say
if
100.
going by the 65,
You did for me.
with just me, I was thinking 70, but since you said 76, so I'm going up 80. So I'm trying to be like realistic.
Reach for the
Positive.
star. Reach for the stars.
100.
No, I don't do 100.
um,
I didn't do 100 either. No way.
I mean, it's your smart goal. So,
As a grade level, I think 80.
80%,
Yes.
okay, by February 26th, okay? So celebrations, Mr. King, with your specific students on the math.
Like I said earlier, the approaches were 65% or better. The students did well on TEAC 5.3G, which is solve for quotients or decimals to the hundreds, up to 4-digit dividends and 2-digit whole number divisors using strategies and algorithms, including standard algorithm. That was question number 2, which was Amy who has 12.6 meters of rope. She has cut pieces of rope that are 0.2 meters long. How many can she cut? And that's the specific question they did the best on in the TEAC that they did the best on.
Okay. How were the strategies? Did they do Foursquare?
Yes,
The
they did.
effort level, I mean,
Yes, they did Foursquare, that showed their work. Many of them use the strategies that we do in class, whether that's writing the divisor on first they had to know how to move the decimal, they did that. And then I had some that would write the divisor would write the multiples, of the divisor down. And then some would also write the steps, to division, down. And so, to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, things like that, they write the reminders down. So pretty much the ones that really did well at that particular question in TEAC, they use their strategies.
so on the flip side of that, was there a TEAC or test question or test questions where, they're struggling that you identified in your data?
That was the one they struggled with the most missed question was 5.3F. That was question number 5, which was represent quotients of decimals to the hundreds up to 4-digit decimals and 2-digit whole number divisors using objects in pictorial models. So it was similar to it was division, it was dividing decimals, but it was, instead of standard form and algorithm, it was objects and pictorial models. So they struggle a little bit more with that one. That was question number 5, and it says which model represents 0.6 divided by 2 equals 0.30 hundredths, yes. And the most frequent incorrect answer was B. And on the data analysis sheet, I put the answer that they mostly picked incorrect answer and also picked the correct answer. And then on what I've got after reviewing the missed questions, what was confusing, I think for them was, students were confused multiplying and dividing using area models, because in the past we've divided with area models, both multiplication and division, but many of them, they multiplied, they picked the multiplying model rather than the model of division.
Okay.
And so I think that part, confusing the models, seems to be what many of them done. And I think that the reason why is because I think we worked more during that time, on multiplying with the models rather than dividing. And I even put, I think students fail to meet mastery due to a lack of spiraling, dividing decimals using area models. We spiral, like, I did more spiraling probably of the standard algorithm, which is the one that they did, and not enough of the, showing them, doing it with models for certain ones that, or for the class is the reason why that they struggled. And they got the model of division and multiplication confused.
How do they do with that communicating mathematically, when they have to write their answer, explain their thinking? I mean, cause I'm just thinking about my wind time and how that's looking with my group.
On the short response.
Yeah, the short response.
On the short response, so that one was question number, I think it was number 3. That was question number 3. Yeah, that one they did, on that one they did pretty good. Now, it was worth 3 points, so there were 2, and that was a perimeter problem. And so there was, the question says, Ed and Jake are making a playground for the neighborhood children. The lot that the playground will be built on is 160 feet long and 140 feet wide. Ed says that they can find the number of feet of fencing needed by using this equation. P equals parentheses 2 times 160 feet, close parentheses, plus parentheses 2 times 140 feet, close parentheses. And then Jake says that they can use the equation P equals 2 times and then all in parentheses 140 feet plus 160 feet. Says who is correct, how do you know? But both of them were the same, I believe it was 600. Both of them was correct, but you had to know that both of them was correct and then explain, how do you know that they're both correct? And I had many of them, I think they got most of the points because most kids knew that one of them was right. And they also gave an explanation of why that one was right, but not necessarily an explanation of why both of them were correct.
Well, you have a really good, idea, King, of, not just which T can test question, but maybe why it didn't. Was there another representation question? And I wrote the 5th grade math, quick check with some of the other ICs, but I don't have my computer up to see it. So is there another representation, one that you can see, Susan, on, there should have been 2.
Oh, there's one with a quilt. The quilt has 100 squares. Miss Anderson sewed 34, the remaining were sewed. Here's a shaded diagram of the quilt.
That was question 8.
Yeah, if the remaining squares were divided, what decimal number would represent the part of the quilt shown by each test member? Yeah, number 8.
How did they do on that, King?
On question 8?
Yeah, since it was another representation question.
I had 14 out of the 26 to miss that one, so it was close. It wasn't, the question number, what was it, I said that they missed the most, 5?
Mm-hmm.
That was one they missed the most, but that one was the close second. Right, that one was a close second.
And this is the same conversation that we've had with 3rd and 4th grade and with Sharon at our IC meeting, is that representation piece is really difficult for the kids, cause it's either strip diagrams or equations or some type of picture. So I guess, other than what you mentioned earlier about them doing more review on the models with division, what else do you think we can do to help these kiddos with this TEAG?
Another thing that I've done is, them use like example like number 8, like we'll get 100 like a block, like using the base 10 blocks, and we use like expo markers to shade them in. So that's something that I've done with some in the past, that I think would probably help a lot of the ones, especially the lower kids. And then after that, once they get that down, it's just a matter of being consistent, like, using that on a regular basis, things like that on a regular basis, just spiraling so they see it, often. Because I have many that if, whatever it is, if they don't see it for a while, then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have to be consistent on,
your stations in math with your menu, do you have like a spiral review type of station? You know how in science we're doing those types of questions, do you have anything put in place similar to that we can, I don't know, if we need to create or find a resource that would be similar to keep that type of stuff fresh?
Yeah, I have the spiral review that I've been using is one that I've used before, and it goes by kind of like the beginning of the year, and it spirals in, it kind of goes how we go throughout the year, it spirals in, that same stuff kind of throughout the year. And so, I mean, I could pull either pull or create, specific questions to give them, but normally if the spiral review already doesn't have I don't know if I can get up and show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't know, if I had to. But something, it's like this,
Yeah.
and I think you've seen it before, and then and I can pick kind of which one it mostly focuses on, but it always gives a little bit of everything, like division, multiplication, order of operations, things like that. But it tells you kind of what if I don't do multiplying decimals or whatever, models, multiplying decimals, see, if I clicked on this one.
Are any of those in word problem, or is it just computation?
No, they have word problems.
Okay.
They have word problems, you see, with
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So it's just not every single spiral review has that on there. It's almost like it's in units. Certain units have multiple, problems like that on here, but not every single one of them. This is like a mix of everything. And then it may only have one or two that you saw, for that week.
How's the win time stuff working out? The math that
It's-
activities.
That was good.
I'm doing mine whole
Feedback.
group because I have 12 kids.
Yeah.
And I was kind of alluding to this a minute ago. My kids, I mean, I'm not their math teacher, and so I don't know the expectation, but today we were having to explain their thinking. For example, they would be like, yeah, they're both right. I'm like, no. Why? And they aren't using, so I wrote it for them. I'm like, okay, you need to use words, numbers, symbols. You can't just say, one of my kids wrote 0.28. I'm like, what does that mean, 0.28? Oh, 1 egg costs 28 cents.
I heard you in the other room. You're like, and keep explaining your thinking.
Yeah, so I wrote it out for them, and I was explaining to them because, I happen to get to work with the really bright kids, and they're like, well, because I just know. Well, no, you got to tell me why you know. How do you know? So I am making them, I'm doing my modeling and making them write it all out, and I said that to them. I said, Nathan, I'm like, buddy, I said, you know this in your head, but I need you to put it on the paper so people know what you're thinking. Because you're like, yeah, it's it's obvious. Well, it is obvious in your head, but to someone who doesn't know, it's not obvious. So I need you to share all of your thinking. So I'm just been making them write it and they'll give me all their answers, and then I'm like, okay, let's make it better. Revise and improve right there. Let's make it better. Let's add in this, let's add in that.
Well, what I do with them is kind of what Lauren had me do with them, starting with the spiral review, and they have a star on star question. So making them whatever answer they choose, just writing a quick explaining why they chose that answer, and it can't be because it's the right answer.
Right.
Go into detail of why did you pick that answer? Because they normally have to underline the question, highlight any important vocabulary words, or words that tell them what they're going to do and things like that. But then also marking out. Some put an S, some mark out the nonsense answer, and then whatever answer you choose, you have to explain why you chose that answer. Why was it
Yeah, we haven't done yet this week. We've only done ones where we have to, there's no multiple choice answer, so they're having to show me their work.
Right. And that identifies, so that part, identify the thinking pattern, like, that's to me, I interpret it as like, why'd you pick that answer? Cause I didn't know, like,
which that was one of the things that I just passed out. So to speak to Sid's point on the questioning, it's the same thing in reading, trying to get out of the rut of just asking them the same thing, but those question stems come from our math curriculum documents. They're buried within a click within a click. But if that's helpful, because I know I've kept the reading question stems out when I'm working with my group so that I change up how I'm asking them. So those are the math question ones. Thanks, Junie. And then the other page that I gave, because one of the things that I talked to 3rd and 4th grade about, that most of them have been using, is having the students identify the thinking pattern. 3 reads was a really big thing for a long time, and now that's not even mentioned whenever we talk about attacking a math word problem. But something that is coming back is thinking patterns, because as much as they need their fact fluency, and we work on that, one of the things that we talked about at the IC meeting is if students have especially a multi-step problem, a lot of them struggle to even identify, am I supposed to be multiplying, dividing? And those test writers will make sure that there's answer choices, so if you do it this way, there will be an answer choice for that, and they think they're doing it the right way. So I've started to use this with my 3rd grade wing group, and I made copies of these. I just didn't cut them apart, but I thought that this would be another resource that the kids could have out during win time or at small group, where you're having them, after they've read the question, they have to identify the thinking pattern. Is the question asking me I have some and I'm getting some more, then they would point to this. More for 5th grade level, they're working in
that egg question, they couldn't figure out dividing, they're like subtracting, I'm like,
right.
What are you subtracting?
Yeah, what are you taking away?
I'm like, oh.
So today I use this with the 3rd graders, because they have kind of started developing that common language in class, and I know Ashby has the posters behind her teacher table, but after they've read it once or twice, I ask them to visualize and think, what's the question asking? And then they're taking away, so it must be, SWA. So this is a resource that I thought maybe we could look at to add to improve our test taking strategies. And so we can talk more about that later. But any positive feedback or anything that you guys need now that we kind of see that the representation piece is the most challenging for them, I may kind of change where or what I'm trying to find in terms of what you all are working.
Were you gonna share those?
Yes.
Okay.
So the article I handed out goes over really super quickly, and I like it because it gives like an example word problem for what that would look like. And then I will give you guys these, I'll put them in your box.
Okay.
Because that is a little different than them explaining their answer. It's getting them to get started on the right foot, hopefully on the word problem before they even get to that part. But
yeah, like the egg problem yesterday,
Yes.
and today I'm like,
and I was gonna ask you, Anthony, don't you have a writing station in math too, or where they're having to kind of construct? Yeah. Okay. I was just trying to think of other opportunities, because I know Antonio mentioned that to me being a problem area for his kids in math and science based on the CFA, that we need to give them more opportunities
to write.
So just kind of brainstorming some different things. So since we wrote on these, I'll type this up and put it nice and neat with the SmartFold so that we have it for next time. And hopefully there were some hiccups with to, or for reading and math, so hopefully, because they've changed who all's looking at them this time, that there won't be any issues this next go around. Y'all have any questions?
No, Susan's getting my kids.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Alright, well, thank you guys. And I will get you guys your resources as well for math and for when time. Oh, and King, we have whiteboards.
Hey,
So everybody gets
the
the whiteboards for the vertical workroom.
Okay.
So we can
where we pick those
start
up?
doing it. We're gonna pass them out. We gotta
Okay.
put labels on them, but yeah. So now they can do their word problems standing up. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Much love.
Adios, amigas.
Adios.